Hi, welcome to the new episode of Startups Right. Today, my guest is Zeynep Yorulmaz. She's the co-founder and CEO of Mindra. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing the name of the startup right. Welcome, Zeynep.
Thanks for having me, Javid.
I'm very excited about this episode. And also, I think you might be my first Turkish guest on the podcast, so extra exciting. I think what you're building is really cool, and the space you are in is also very cool. A lot of all those stuff I don't actually personally understand, so I'm going to ask you to clarify a few things for me. Before we start with more technical questions, I would like to kind of give you a chance to start with your own background, your own words, up until the founding of the startup.
Yeah, okay, sure. I'm Zeynep. I'm 21 years old. So, first, I started my journey with some other startups, but I founded Mindra 4 months ago with my beautiful co founders. And before that, in high school, I was also very interested in AI and machine learning. So, my whole technical background journey actually started in high school. I was very much interested in machine learning and I was doing some research projects. We have some research organization in Turkey called TÜBİTAK. So I was doing some research projects for that. Then I realized I love AI. I should go pursue computer science in uni. Then I started my computer science degree at Koç University, and there I started my first company. And before that, I done some research on computer vision. And after research, I thought, oh, maybe research is not for me. The academical hierarchy, I would say, I'm not very fond of it and I should go pursue something else. Then I started to work as an AI engineer at Bosch, a corporate German company. And there I saw that also corporate is not for me. What I was doing where there was also AI engineering back then, but it's very hard to implement AI where you're at a place that security is the most important thing at more important than innovation, I would say. Then after that, I thought maybe I should go pursue startups. And then I done some projects as well, like startup projects. Like sometimes people call it projects because it's not a very serious thing because you didn't get any funding or investment. They call it as projects. But I think in my opinion, even though if you don't get any funding, even if you don't have any revenue, it's very valuable. And they're all startups. That's why 99% of the startups die, in my opinion. Then doing that startup, I got accepted from the Meta Accelerator, a global accelerator. Then I got some pre-seed funding, but it wasn't very much. It was like an angel ticket size. Then it was a very social project. It was ML based, like content generation for dyslexic children. Then I have seen that it's not very sustainable for me financially. And after that project, I have seen that it's not very financially sustainable, and I decided to quit that. And after that project, I started to work at a startup. I was also doing AI engineering there. Then I had to go to Munich for my exchange semester. Then I started to work at a Munich startup, and it was a YC backed startup. So I had a lot of experience, and it was a very early stage startup. So I have seen the 0 to 1 million ARR, which was very valuable for me. And because I was the fifth employee, the team was very small. I had a lot of responsibilities and I had to the chance to experience everything from first end. And I think it was very valuable. And I also tried some mobile apps, like creating mobile apps with my co-founder Dennis. Actually, we were together back then as well. And I got a lot of hackathons, like at least 10, I think more than 10 for sure, in different countries, because at hackathons you actually had the chance to travel there and also have some flight expense back. So it was also very good for traveling purposes as well, and also meet other people from other companies and build there. And with my team, we always went with my co-founders there, and we had chance to ship together, build together. So I know them for a long time, and I worked for with them for a long time. And after that, the whole startup working and the startup building stages, I thought maybe I should start Mindra, because as a team, we have seen that Google has published the A2A protocol. Everyone is going very agentic. A lot of startups are building agents. And the question was how should agents collaborate then? And we started with this question in April, but like almost like February, like we even bought the domain for Mindra.co in February. Then we had the mature idea in April. Then we developed it, improved it, and we done some customer interviews. Then we were like in different cities back then. I was in Munich, then it was in Amsterdam, and Ilker was in Istanbul. So it wouldn't be very efficient for us to start a company. Like it doesn't work from Zoom.
Yes.
So we thought maybe we should go together. So I moved back to Turkey in October, Dennis as well. So we started to raise some money. We raised the money, then we started to work on the product. So that's the story of how Mindra actually was born.
Wow, you have a very impressive resume. You've done, oh my God, you mentioned so many startups and hackathons. I lost the track. Um, one thing that kind of caught my eye is that you've had the experience at this fast growing startups, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like, um, starting your own thing can be such a daunting task and action. And, sometimes you can see more kind of, I guess, both financially and just in terms of like in general success if you stay at a fast growing startup, right? Instead of starting with something of your own. And what made you is pursue instead like finding your own thing?
I mean, I knew that I would be like a founder someday, but I didn't know when because by the way, I'm still in uni, so I haven't graduated yet. So I'm still studying. So I thought it's maybe like when you also pitch to investors, they're like, oh, you should drop out. Like you should do this full time. But the thing is, you can do it full time and also study. Like I just go pursue my finals and I can still graduate. I just have one semester left. Why would I just like waste all of the 3 years spent back in uni just to like found it now? So that was one of the reasons why I didn't do it like before. And also, I thought if I have some experience from other startups, the risk level of failing and also seeing the mistakes will decrease my like risk of like failing my own startup as well. So that's one of the reasons why. And I mean, I think like if you want to be a founder, you always have something in the back of your mind. For example, you go to hackathons, you ship something like you don't need funding, you don't really need to have customers, you just know a problem and you just want to solve it. Like there are a lot of vibe coders right now. Like I think it's very valuable. Like back then, 2 years ago, no one was building anything. Right now, non-technical people, they're also building a lot of stuff. I think like I'm I think I'm really happy and also like it's very great to be born in this generation, I would say.
Fair enough. That's a good point. One thing I'm curious about, you said I've heard that a lot of times when investors are like drop out, start to start up.
Mhm.
But you're right, right? If you've studied for so many years, why not just finish a semester and just keep doing what you're doing? Um, Kind of a twofold question. One is why did you want to kind of start Mindra without waiting to finish university? And two, when you were raising, did that pose any challenge in terms of when you were like, no, I don't want to drop out, but I still want to build this?
Yeah. At first, I thought there's like a huge competition right now. Like, if you have an idea and if you do not start today, you're probably losing. Like, I mean, there's a saying competition is for losers, but sometimes, like, in the world of I think it's not really like, I don't really agree with that right now. And what I thought was like, I need to be competing with all of these people, all of these companies, and I need to start first. Like if I keep this idea for like 3 months in myself, and if I do not start now, probably I will lose it because like the competition is like not really fair right now, I would say. Companies, yeah, and the capital as well. Like Google, Meta, like big tech companies have all of the capital, they have more people. And yeah, for the second question, yeah, it did a lot of like bad effects in my opinion, but like it depends on who you talk to and the VCs thesis as well, because some VCs think that the founder is the most element of the startup. They don't care about the idea. sometimes they think about the idea, about the background, the match. So when I talk to Turkish investors, they were always like, "Oh, you're too young. You need to gain some experience. You need to know some people. You need to know like who to hire for the first 50 people, and you don't have that network, in my opinion. Or you need to graduate first. Like you cannot do it." And they always kind of invest in people that are more experienced. They have some exits before, and yeah, it did affect with Turkish investors. But for the American investors, some of them cared and said like, if you're not dropping out, you're not living your idea. Yeah, there's this one type of investors, and for example, our investor thought like, if you want to start, you should start now. Why are you waiting for graduation? But you can also like finish your school like anyway. Like they believed in us basically.
That's really cool. Speaking of, you know, Turkish, as I said at the beginning of our episode, is that you might be the first Turkish founder I've had on my podcast. Um, Turkey has a very strong track record of producing very, strong local, but also global startups. I mean, one that comes to mind recently was Billion to One IPO, but I'm sure there's more to it, right? Um, what does I guess what does being a Turkish founder mean to you personally?
I think like being born in a certain geography like totally affects how you think about world, how you think about entrepreneurship, like basically everything in my opinion. And like in our very young ages, we are like taught to believe that you need to pursue something less risky, in my opinion. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you should go be a doctor or teacher. Like you should have some job that is more I think like guaranteed. I don't know, but in my opinion, Turkish people have also very specific trait that some of them can risk anything at
Mm.
all.
I guess my question was more, because of that existing ecosystem of people, of the track record, do you feel like there's a good kind of a community, tapping into community, kind of being around the founders? Like people move to SF essentially to be around that ecosystem. Do you feel like you find that in Turkey?
Mm, I think yes, but not like it's not like in SF, of course. Like, I mean, there are a lot of Turkish people in SF. Like, wherever you go, in a cafe, in a restaurant, you always hear some Turkish, which is really nice. And I think the Turkish community in SF also support each other in a very good way. They're really connected. Everybody knows each other, and I think that's very valuable. In Istanbul, I think like there are two types of entrepreneurs. One of them, they're like they have the mindset that in the SF, and the other ones more think about the business, very local. But I think some VCs are making great effort to just like create this community in Turkey right now. I would say it's better than 5 years ago.
Okay, fair enough. I guess to bring the conversation back to your startup, Mindra, what are you building and what problem are you trying to solve?
Yep. So we're building the multi-agentic orchestrator, which means companies come to us, we onboard their agents into our system, we create an agent pool. And we are actually aiming non-technical people. We want them to solve any task with AI using the AI agents within their company. For example, you give a very complex task as a prompt, as like in natural language input, then we just break it down to subtasks and we assign these agents to subtasks so the whole complex task is completed without needing to build workflows or write code, do anything technical. And the problem we're solving is like we want to make AI agents more accessible from like everyone. Anybody could just like prompt anything, give natural language inputs. We actually want to build a cloud code for non-technical people because developers are using Cloud Code every day. They're just texting what they need, and Cloud Code breaks it down, gives agents some task, and accomplishes it. And it's really great. It's very productive, and non-technical people cannot utilize this tool, and they cannot utilize their agents because they have some single use use cases like most of the time, and they cannot connect them. They build workflows, but workflows often fail because when there's something going wrong, you cannot fix it because it's already in production. And at Mindra, basically, we're just like developing this flow dynamically according to the input.
From what you said, essentially what I'm understanding is that, a company might have multiple agents. They come to you, you onboard those agents,
Hmm.
and kind of like you become a control center for those agents. Is that the right logic?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, let's do an example. For example, let's say it's a very basic example. Like you wanna generate some content and post it on LinkedIn, and then you wanna send this to your Slack channel so that people can like it within your company. We have this, for example, LinkedIn agent that posts this, then executes the publishing part. We have one agent that generates, for example, the image and also the text. And we have another agent that just like texts to Slack, let's say. And for example, you give this task, I want to do this, then post this, then send message to Slack. We break it down to subtask. First, the task is basically generating the text of the post, generating the image. For example, generating the text and the image should be in parallel because it makes more sense. Like, why would you like waste time waiting for each other? Then we have the posting part, and then we have the Slack part. So the posting part and Slack part, for example, should be sequentially, and the orchestrator agent in our system decides this dynamically.
Interesting. So you are not making the agents. They are bringing their own agents.
Yes, but you could like we also have some like very general use case agents so that you don't need to build yourself.
You know, if you're working with so many different, I'm just trying to understand because it's such a cool solution, but I'm trying to understand how scalable that could be when you're working
Mhm.
with so many different companies and they're all bringing their different agents. Like, how scalable would that be?
I mean, you could bring any agent, like we don't have any limits for that. It's very easy to connect because it just needs to be deployed somewhere. Like, just give us the endpoint URL, then we can onboard it in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It's very easy. It's very scalable. And for example, in companies right now, they don't have a tool for just managing all of these agents together. For example, a department has a marketing agent, another department has a product manager agent, and they're not even aware themselves that they have these agents. So in big enterprises, we actually have this problem, and it makes it very easy to, there's some control plane that you can check all of the agents and use them all together.
Interesting. At what point did you realize, we don't need more agents, we need an orchestrator?
Hmm. So the thing was like, you have a lot of agents that like helps you, automizes your business and everything. But the thing is, you always need to check things. For example, you take the output of one agent, then just go give as input to another agent. So you always need to be in that flow and in that loop, and you cannot really go away. You always have some like management overhead of agents. That's where I actually believed like, oh, we need to do this ASAP.
As company scales, as company grows, the number of agents can increase from agents to 500 agents, as they can be across many different workflows. And as you said, in many different teams. What's sort of like the biggest orchestration bottleneck the Mindra is designed to solve? And also, you know, there might be very specific niche agents too, across many different industries, right? Like different
Mhm.
enterprise. Like, how do you navigate that? Like, why is it better to have something like Mindra instead of developing a solution in house, for example?
In my opinion, the biggest differentiation we have is the dynamism we have. And for example, some industries, they have a lot of risk factors. Let's say supply chain. A supplier can go bankrupt, and you just need to design the whole chain from scratch. So that's where actually Mindra helps. You can just like, because we are very dynamic, and because when an input changes, we can just like design the flow again. It really helps with the stations that has risks, and we can just like assess this risk and act accordingly.
Fair enough. And at this point, what are the most kind of ideal customer profiles? Or what are the teams that are feeling this pain the most, or are gonna feel this pain the most?
I mean, we're still discovering that because we have a very horizontal solution right now. Any team can just like go have it. Like you can use it in marketing, you can use it in supply chain, like any non-technical team can actually use it. But what we realize is that the more agents you have, the more valuable Mindra is. So enterprises are, I think, like they can be very good ICP for us, but the problem is that it's really hard them to adapt these things. Like they're very slow and everything. So we're also like in talks with a lot of small medium enterprises, but in small medium enterprises they generally choose to write their own orchestration through code, but the problem is that it's not very scalable. The more agents you add, the more like glue code you need to write. So Mindra also helps with that.
Got it. And yeah, it's very interesting. Everything you're saying, I feel like I'm learning as I'm speaking to. Um, Sometimes when I read one thing, as we're deploying more agents and as agents are starting to talk to other agents, I feel like one of the things I am thinking about is, potential hallucinations or like this harmful interactions between agents. Um, what's Mindra's solution? Kind of how are you guys at Mindra thinking about that? And also, how do you even define an unacceptable behavior, right? Like what are the kind of criteria to define, okay, this is not actually good communication between the agents?
Yeah. So we actually have risk levels for every type of action. For example, even posting to LinkedIn is a medium risk level at Mindra's system because like it is posting for you and it might be risky. So we are assigning risk levels to each task, each subtask. And if it is medium risk or high risk, there's always human in the loop system. So you need to go approve. And we have approvals tab just for that case.
How do you primarily see hallucinations as kind of like a model problem, or is it like more a system problem? And do you think they're going to, become, I guess, reduce more and more as models continue to improve?
I think it's not a model problem. It's not a system problem. I think it's a context management problem because the context window gets really big if you have a lot of agents, and you need to have some tricks to keep this context window very small. And also, you need to update it very good in order to keep all of this good information and not hallucinate further. So we have a specific system that is designed for this architecture, and for each subtask and sub agent, we actually keep the context differently and just like grab the information if needed. If not, not just put the context window.
So we are entering this agent first world, right? Like that's becoming the norm
Mhm.
across many different levels, across many different organizations, and also across many different workflows. Does traditional workflow design become kind of obsolete, or does it simply evolve?
I think it's evolving because I don't think like companies are cancel their UiPath annual contract anyway, because sometimes you need to have very static flows as well. I'm not saying like everything needs to be dynamic. Sometimes you just need to repeat tasks. So I think there will be some evolvement, not like a whole change, and they won't die in my opinion. It will just like change how we interact with these flows and how they react back.
What kind of improvement would you like to see in the AI world? Or like a kind of development you would like to see that you would really benefit what you're doing at Mindra?
In my opinion, models are like getting better every day, which helps us a lot. And also the context window is also getting better every day. It's also very helpful. And I think like in AI, like anything will be possible in the future, but we just don't know when. And it depends on how us startups and big tech companies take actions accordingly. And yeah, I think like at Mindra, it would be really better if we had like a very good context window, a better context window, maybe infinite context window in the future.
That's so interesting. And where would you place Mindra, right? Like, would that be an infrastructure layer kind of startup? Would that be middleware, or as I said, we briefly touched upon it, was that being sort of like a control planes that kind of sits high level for the AI teams.
Yep. One of my potential investors actually told me do not say infra to everybody. It will scare everybody and you won't have any investors they will think that you cannot sell to anyone at all. So I think being an infra is being more like a dev tool. And if you call it infra, it's like a I say you do something technically great, but you cannot really sell it. But in my opinion, we are building a layer, not just like an infra, and we want non-technical teams to use it. So I would rather not call it as an infrastructure, but I would call it rather as like a layer, because I could also name it as like a bridge, because it just makes people's life better, easier. And we first thought we need to be like infrastructure, but in my opinion, open source is overrated right now. It's a hot
Interesting. When
take.
you say that,
Because I mean, there are a lot of code right now produced by AI, and it's not for example, when Cloudbot was published, there were a lot of issues on GitHub, and the developer himself, he didn't read all of this code. He just asked the committers, can you just give me the prompt so that I can follow AI do it? So nobody reads code nowadays.
interesting, very interesting. Very quickly, when you mentioned, there's a human in the loop process to it for the so when agents fail, like what's the, I guess, go-to way for stakeholders? Like, what do they prefer? How to be notified? Is it via Slack? Is there a certain dashboard? Is it an auto fix? Or, I guess you mentioned the human in the loop too, right? Like, what's your kind of approach and overall thinking, not just now, but also for the future when, let's say, agents fail?
At Mindra, when an agent fails, we actually have a retry system, and after that retry, the orchestrator just tries to fix it through another way if the retries don't work. And we have a notification system, and we also have a dashboard where you can see all of the logs, why it went wrong, and everything. Some startups are working on only the observability part of things. So some of them are just stopping all of the flow, but I think it's not the right way. If you stop the flow, what are all of these people gonna do? They're working and they cannot utilize these tools, they cannot use them. So I think, in my opinion, to fully stop it does not make sense. We just try to solve it, and if not, yeah, we just notify.
Interesting. As a follow up to that question, do you believe fully self healing agent systems will be kind of realistic as time passes? Or do you think human in the loop will always be necessary?
I think self-healing will be more possible than now in the future, but like these are all by reinforcement learning. And in RL, it's very high cost, and people are not very focused on it right now as startups, because they're more focused on building, shipping fast. And in the future, I believe it will be better. But I mean, for specific cases, you always need some data. And if you don't have that data, it will eventually fail. I mean, it will be I think eventually 99.99%, but not you cannot guarantee anything yet.
In terms of, you mentioned something interesting, shipping fast, right? And I feel like the shipping fast culture is very much, uh, it has always been the case with startups, but I feel like it's even more important now in the day of AI, in the age of AI.
Yeah, true.
Um, but how do you balance that between, like, as you said, like building a nice working product, but also shipping fast? Like, how do you approach that balance?
Like a lot of people are vibe coding right now, but it's also very unhealthy if you do it wrong, because there if in the code base there are a lot of vibe coding code that is not reviewed or that is not taken care of, it's very hard to maintain, and you just cannot go with that flow. You cannot keep that code because you cannot also add any new features anymore because the code is very bad. It also makes the context window very dirty so that you cannot have the ability of the AI anymore. So I think there should be some balance in some way, that you should ship fast, but also check the quality of the code.
Zeynep, can you elaborate a bit more on what context window means?
Mhm. So when we talk to LLMs, there is some context window where you have the inputs, like it's like a chat history where you have the inputs, outputs, what has been done in the past, so that the LLM knows how to respond, knowing all the stuff you mentioned before.
Now I'm going to take a more kind of a macro look at what you're doing. If I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're building across two kind of, you're building both in Turkey and San Francisco, right? Like
Yep,
between two.
correct.
SF is a different world, obviously. You know, that's the epicenter of the AI startups and anything AI. And we are kind of living in the most, probably, arguably most intense AI cycle we've ever seen. Um, why did you kind of decide, having also base in San Francisco, and what building a startup in such a pressure cooker environment, I guess, change your perspective, change the way you build your startup?
I think if you want to be a market leader, you need to be in SF. Like, you cannot be a market leader in other parts of the world. Like, unfortunately, I wish, but because like your customers will be based in there, and your competitors are there. So if you're not there, you're losing time, you're losing money, you're losing market share. So you need to be there. Like, there is no other question on that. And I think also the whole competition there also pushes you. Sometimes I think it can be toxic, depends on like your personal traits, but I think it affected me positively, seeing the like Barbie ecosystem there. Everybody's pushing very fast, and like even though you talk to competitors there, and I think it's always very valuable to learn something from your competitor if they're nice enough.
Fair enough. You are building with your two co-founders, right? And I'm guessing, you are the CEO, so there's the CTO, and what's the third?
CPO.
CPO. Fair enough. And I feel like I'm seeing more of CPO roles, and I guess it's becoming more important on not just making a product, but also how you make that product, right?
I
Um,
agree.
is it a three member team right now?
No, we're 5 people. We have 2 founding engineers.
Nice, nice. So the reason I'm asking this question is that I'm assuming you're kind of wearing many different hats, right? You're looking at technical stuff. You're trying to find customers, you're talking to investors. How are you balancing these different, workflows, wearing too many different hats?
I mean, it's difficult. Like, it's difficult for everybody. Like, it doesn't change anything. Like, in my opinion, like, because I come from a technical background, like, the transformation process was smooth. Like, I'm getting better at sales every day. That's for sure. And for the investors part, I think, like, at some point, you don't really need to talk investors. Just keep the conversation going. Just have the relationship. Just send them updates and everything. But don't spend too much time on investors if you have the money, of course,
Mm.
because like you need to focus on the product. You need to focus on the customers. It's You need to focus on the business, not the investors. I think it's more valuable. You need to be more profitable. You don't need more cash in the bank.
That's such a fair point. Do you think, in terms of finding customers, right? Like, do you think it's important to run few pilot trials with few customers, or do you think you need to continue talking to as many customers as possible, especially in those early stages?
I mean, it depends on the product you do, because if you're doing something very niche and something that is very industry specific, very vertical, I think you need some design partners that if you need some like info on that field. For example, I don't have any specific info on supply chain. For example, we can go do POC with them, but it doesn't make sense if you're building cloud bot in my opinion, because it's very horizontal. You can apply anything, and it's very related to daily life. So I think it depends on the product you build.
And in terms of like the investors, I think at the very beginning of our episode, you mentioned something interesting. You said, not obviously different investors have different kind of the ways they
Mhm.
look for the people, for the founders, for the startups. And that's very much true. In terms, and I think, finding a VC investor is not just about the capital, right? It's also about finding the right partners that will help you find the customers, help you shape your strategy, develop certain like other methodologies, strategies. What's your thinking on in terms of finding the right investors, that founder investor fit essentially?
I think you should go talk to portfolio companies and ask other founders how about their relationship, how they talk, the board meetings and everything, so that you know what's gonna be up for you. And I think founders will be very honest about them. If you ask the investors, of course they will say the only good parts, or I mean because they want to invest in you. And I think you should need to go talk to founders.
I'm going to ask you my final question, Zainab. It's been a very
Yeah,
interesting
sure.
episode. You have very, you taught me a lot, and hopefully people who watch will also learn quite a bit. Um, w- I don't like to say if, I like to say when, for the founders I interview. So when Mindra succeeds, what should the world look differently, in terms of, because it exists?
Like, I think, like, if people start to use Mindra, and it could be also like an everyday product for other people as well, because because it's designed for non-technical teams, you can do anything with it. You can ask to Mindra to edit this podcast and publish it on YouTube, write the descriptions, write the SEO words, the correct SEO words for this YouTube video, just like parallelly, for example, published on different channels. I think it will be very helpful in the operational sides, and the world will be more efficient and also less costly in terms of tokens, and also we won't waste a lot of water.
Fair, fair. Hopefully the agent is not the one interviewing you, next time.
No.
And I will not lose my podcast. But, Zainab, thank you so much for such a wonderful interview. And I
Thank
wish,
you for having me.
of course, I wish you tons of luck with going forward. And I hope we can remain in touch.
Yeah, sure. All the best to other founders as well.